All right, it is 6 o'clock. We do have quorum. I'm going to go ahead and call this evening's meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals for the City of Florence to order. First item on this evening's agenda is approval of the minutes of the March 24th, 2022 meeting. Minutes have been submitted to members of the board and ample time to review. Are there any changes or amendments to the minutes? There being none, do we have a motion to approve?
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
Meeting minutes for March 24th, 2022.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. The minutes are approved. Next item on this evening's agenda is hearing number BZA-2022-04. Special exception permit request to operate a short-term rental as required by Table 1-2.7.2-B in the Unified Development Ordinance for Residents. Location is 1112 Pinckney Avenue. Tax map number is 90053-09-018. Owner of record is Catherine Lee. Applicant is Catherine Lee. The board will now hear from city staff.
Good evening. The property is located in the city on Pinckney Avenue between Poinsett and Waccamaw off of Second Loop Road. Here's a vicinity map or a location map of it. It is zoned NC10, which is a single-family residential area. Everything around it is also zoned for single-family residential. And the future land use calls for it to be neighborhood conservation. So, the standards for short-term rentals as laid out in the Unified Development Ordinance are that in NC districts such as this one, a short-term rental or an STR is permitted if it is shown that the rental will be operated by the owner and full-time resident of the property. In this case, it will be. The owner may rent out no more than 2 bedrooms in the primary residence. She's planning at this point to rent just one, maybe the 2 bedrooms. The owner shall maintain a guest registry. She's planning to do that. Parking is to be in the existing driveway. No exterior signage is permitted. No activities other than lodging will be allowed as part of the STR, and it will be operated in accordance with all applicable provisions and requirements. And the owner is aware of these requirements and has stated that that is her intent. She has 1 or 2 extra bedrooms. She's very active in her church, and occasionally they do have visitors to the church, and she just wants to be able to offer them somewhere to stay while they're there. And just as a reminder, short-term rental permits, special exception permits, go with the owner. So even if she were to sell the property, the new owner would not have this permit. They would have to apply for it for themselves. So, and I have not received any phone calls against this request. So that concludes staff's report.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for city staff from members of the board?
Yes, ma'am. I just want to make it clear. No calls, not even general questions, calling just to ask.
Nope. And letters went out to all the surrounding property owners, and a sign was posted in the front yard, and it was posted in the newspaper.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? All right. Thank you very much. The board will now hear from the applicant or anybody else who wishes to speak on behalf of the applicant, or either for or against the appeal. There being none, are there any questions that the board has amongst ourselves? So make sure we cover all our bases. All right, there being none, the chair will now entertain a motion, and the chair would like to remind the board that we do not need to list out every single thing like we usually do for a normal variance request. This is just a simple up or down vote.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion that we accept the application as submitted.
All right. We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. The variance request for special exception is approved. Next items on this evening's agenda is appeal number BZA-2022-05, a variance request from the screening requirements in section 1-2.8.5J of the Unified Development Ordinance for development of a commercial building and parcel. Location is 670 Senior Way, tax map number 00179-01-042. Owner of record is Through Him LLC. Applicant is Bryce Evington. And the board will now hear from city staff.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
This is a vicinity map of 680 Senior Way. Currently, there is Florence Pediatric Dentistry. That's what you can see from the aerial. And Mr. Elvington is constructing at 670. They're still on the same parcel, 670 Senior Way, the toy shop. So it is currently under construction now. Across the street, you have Freedom Florence. You can see some softball fields. And to the west, you have the Leatherman Senior Center. So here's the dental office. This was constructed in 2013 before the Unified Development Ordinance, and it was zoned B3. So here's the current zoning now. It is currently zoned Commercial General. All right, here's a site plan. You can see Florence Pediatric Dentistry is the building on the right, and then the toy shop, which is currently being constructed to the west. Mr. Elvington was before the board back in February of 2020, and he did get the side setback reduced from 20 feet to 5 feet, and the rear setback reduced from 40 feet to 20 feet. They bought the parcel while it was a B3, and their plans for construction were as such that they needed those setbacks to make it comply. All right, and the buffer yard requirements for vehicular use areas, including parking lots, to buffer public street right-of-ways from headlights and the appearance of cars, it is mandated that a shrub be planted to form a continuous buffer of at least 3 feet high to surround the property. And that's what Mr. Elvington is asking for a variance from. So here's the approved landscape plan. They did get zoning approval March of 2021 with this approved landscaping plan. The landscape plan was relaxed to be in line with Florence Pediatric Dentistry because it was developed under B3 standards. So we wanted this one to mirror those B3 standards. And as such, the Florence Pediatric Dentistry does not have this parking lot buffer yard. It was not required at the time. And those were azalea bushes proposed at the top. Those number 5s, those are what would screen Freedom Florence and Senior Way from the cars that are parked in the parking lot. Now here's some site photos. Here's the toy shop under construction. Looks like it's getting pretty close to opening. Leatherman Senior Center is to the right next door. And then, of course, Freedom Florence. You can see some ball fields in the background. So a variance from the terms of the ordinance will not be contrary to public interest. Installing the shrubbery around the parking area abutting the street will result in the lot having more intense landscaping than the properties in the vicinity. That the spirit of the ordinance will be observed. The previous zoning ordinance did not require parking lot screening to the degree that the UDO does, and the height requirement of the buffer is 3 feet. That there are extraordinary exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property. The proposed parking lot is a continuum of the existing dental office parking lot. That these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. There are a few commercial developments in the immediate vicinity and nothing currently being developed under the new UDO. That because of these conditions, the application ordinance to a particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict. These landscape requirements pertain to all commercial parking lots and are not intended to restrict or prohibit the use of property. And finally, that the authorization of a variance will not be a substantial detriment to adjacent property. Other properties in the vicinity do not have this parking lot buffer. And that does conclude staff's report.
Thank you very much. Are there questions for city staff from members of the board?
Yes, sir. Derek, I know you mentioned that he's the previous UDO. He came back in and was it 2020 about setback lines,
Yes.
and now what's it's the buffer zones or is it
The parking lot buffer yard. That
he wants
3-foot
more or he
edge.
wants less?
He wants to just eliminate it so
Altogether?
that it looks like Florence Pediatric Dentistry and matches the character of what was previously developed under the B3 zoning ordinance.
And that was the new ordinance that brought in, that had these,
The parking lot buffer yard, yes, sir.
okay, did he have these back in 2020, these buffer zones?
Back in 2020, he actually got a zoning permit to construct the toy shop in 2021.
With the setbacks?
Right.
yeah.
So he got the variance back in 2020, and he used those setbacks that BZA granted for the zoning permit in 2021. So, and it's almost done.
And he just wants a relax from the,
From the requirements, he wants to remove that 3-foot hedge required between a parking lot and the street.
thank you, Derek.
Thanks.
So, with no hedge, it's just gonna be a grass?
It would just be grass, yes, sir.
I believe he's still including all the tree requirements, the side beds and all that, so it would still be a land, some trees, and the applicant is here, he could answer those questions, but I believe he's still planning to install the required trees in the medians and such, but just not the full planting of the shrubs along the area there. Yeah, the continuous 3-foot hedge is what he wants to eliminate, but still landscape the areas just with trees and I guess mulch or something of that nature.
Right. Everything else in the approved landscaping plan will be installed. He would just like to remove that 3-foot hedge.
Just to clarify, could you go to page, I think it's 27? Is the second picture down?
Is it site photos or is it a
Site photos.
Okay, site
I'm sorry,
photos.
yeah.
Is it this one?
Top left will be fine.
Oh, okay.
In a nutshell, it's just a continuation of that, correct?
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay,
Same parcel,
right,
continuation of the same parking lot.
okay. Are there any other questions from members of the board? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The board will now hear from the applicant, Mr. Elvington. If you don't mind, sir, we're going to swear you in your obviously festive outfit. We appreciate that.
I wear green for the land.
Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth?
Yes.
All right, you may proceed.
So like most situations, I'm here because my wife got upset about this. And usually I've learned the less I say, the better, but I do want to go on record for other requirements or other properties. Something I never thought of because I'm a man. Women seem to have a lot more focus on cleanliness and safety.
Right.
And I never thought of the hedges there being a safety issue. But one, it's for kids that might run in the road. If a car's coming, they're not going to see them until they're through the hedges versus if it's clear. The other thing is our employees. Other than me, both of our businesses, 100% are women employees. We actually invited the mayor out to talk to her about that. I know she's busy. Unfortunately, she couldn't come, but more unfortunately, she sent a man in her place, so it kind of defeated the whole purpose. So I am glad to see there's a woman on the board. So if anything I say is not right, you can probably chime in. But the doctor across the street, he is always telling my wife, because they do surgeries in the same place, and our employees to be aware. There's a lot of activity in the woods. We found condoms, we found trash, we found all sorts of stuff in our parking lots. Twice, while under construction, we've had burglaries of our lumber and tools. And not only do we not want to be concealed, we don't want to be the only concealed parking lot in the area, which would attract that kind of activity. In those cases, too, at our other store, we called police, we can kind of see it. We love our police here. We can kind of see the morale of, we'll file the report, but don't expect much. And I feel that's kind of empowered this criminal activity more than ever. So I don't just say that for our property, but for any kind of future requirements or properties that may have to appeal these. Think about if you're a mom with 4 children trying to get them in and out of the car, you have your back turned, The doctor across the street always says, get in your car, put your kids in your seat, don't leave yourself exposed. So there have been some studies that we saw that we would have cited if we felt the need, that you can lose women customers if you don't have a clean and safe facility and surrounding. And pretty much of a toy store, our target customer is a mom. So, thank you.
All right. Are there any questions for the applicant for members of the board?
I don't have any questions, but I have a comment I'd like to make.
Okay.
I'm one of those seniors who participate at the Leatherman Center 4 days out of the week, and I'm kind of glad that you're not putting the shrubs out there because it is a safety hazard. Because when you come out the Leatherman Center, you got to go around this little curve thing and then get to the stop sign. So I'm just glad you're not putting no shrubs out there. The construction is enough going by your construction 4 days a week.
Right. Well, if we had more control over that, it would be finished by now.
Thank you, Ms. Moses. Are there any other questions for members of the board? All right. There being none, thank you very much. And just for the record, you can tell your wife that these meetings are recorded. So all of your, comments will be, etched in stone for her to review later on. So that'll be good to see. All right. Are there any other discussions that need to be held for members of the board? There being none, the chair will now entertain a motion to either approve or deny the variance request.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve, based on the following, that a variance from the terms of this ordinance would not be contrary to the public's interest where, owing to special conditions, a lateral enforcement of the provisions will, in an individual case, result in unnecessary hardship. Installing the shrubberies around the parking areas abutting the streets will result in the lot having more intense landscaping than the properties in the vicinity. Number two, that the spirit of the ordinance will be observed, public safety and welfare secured, and substantial justice done. The previous zoning ordinance did not require parking lot screening to the degree that UDO does, and the height requirement of the buffer is 3 feet. That number three, that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property. This proposed parking lot is a continuum of the existing dental office parking lot. Number four, that these conditions do not generally apply to the other properties in the vicinity. There are a few commercial developments in the immediate vicinity and nothing currently being developed under the new UDO. Number five, that because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unnecessarily restrict the utilization of the property as follows. These landscape requirements pertain to all commercial parking lots and not intended to restrict or prohibit their use of the property. And number six, that the authorization of a variance would not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district would not be harmed by the granting of this variance. Other properties in the vicinity do not have a parking lot buffer, and safety has become an issue that is brought up. And so based on those, I recommend we grant.
Thank you, Mr. Poston. We have a motion to approve the variance. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. The variance request is approved. Mr. Everything, thank you so much for your participation here. You're welcome to stay. With your presence here, Melanie. Thank you very much.
So it's actually going to be a toy shop?
Like a kid's toy shop.
Kids' toy shop.
We get that question.
I was going to say, you might need some signage facing towards Freedom Boulevard, unless the location is not a pass-through.
We'll probably put a sign right there with the
Thank you, Tigger. All right, are there any other items that need to be discussed on this evening's agenda?
No, thank you. Enjoy this beautiful spring evening.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. All opposed, ayes have it. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you guys very much.
That was easy.